Today's video is on subtracting fractions, and we're going to do this in two ways. The first way we're going to do this is converting our mixed numbers into improper fractions and subtracting, and then we're going to look at what it means to borrow from a whole number. So if we start with converting mixed numbers to improper fractions, we're going to first multiply here and then add. So 11 times 4, we get 44, and then 44 plus 9, we get 53. Denominator's going to stay here for now. Minus, and we're going to leave this as is, as 8 over 5. Okay? When we think about finding our denominator, we need to write out our multiples. So let's start with 5 and 11. So 5, we're going to skip count. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. Now we'll skip count by 11s. So 11, 22, 33, 44, 55. And if you notice, we're a little ahead here, so let's skip count up until we can find something. So then 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, and then we reach our number we're looking for. Our least common multiple in this case is 55. Again, multiplication chart, much easier, and you can actually, kind of avoid this step. So if we need to get to 55 as our common denominator, we need to go back and say, okay, this right here times 5, and then this times 5. And you're going to notice when we do it this way, we've got some bigger numbers to multiply than when we split apart. So again, it's whatever's going to work best for you, but we're going to go through and do it both ways. So now we need to multiply this one by 11 and this one by 11. So whatever we do to the top, we need to do the bottom. All right, so 53 times 5. We know our denominator is going to be 55. I know that 5 times 3 is 15. And 5 times 5 is 25, plus 1 is 26. So I get this big number of 265 over 55, minus, we know 11 times 5 is going to be 55. And 11 times 8 is 88. And now that we have a like common denominator, we can subtract. So I'm going to bring my denominator over here, and then we need to subtract 265 from 88. So I need to borrow here. This becomes a 5. So 15 minus 8 is 7. I need to borrow again. 15 minus 8 is 7. 1. I get 177 over 55. So I'm not done yet. Again, so this process and this way does take a little bit longer. Now I need to divide this out to put it back into a mixed number. So I need to go 177 divided by 55. I know that 55 times 2 is 110, which means 55 times 3 would give me 165, and it looks like that is going to be the number I need. So 3 times 55 is going to be 165, and when I subtract, I get 2 here and 1 here. So now I just need to take what I have here and put it together as my answer. So this becomes my whole number. What the remainder is my numerator. And then the 55 stays as my denominator. Now that took a while. We got an answer. but it did take a while. So let's go back and do this problem a different way. I'm going to keep this answer here so that we know and remember what we had. And I'm going to go back and erase everything we did up here. Create some space. So when we look at splitting apart our whole numbers from our fractions and solving that way, what does that look like? Well, if I go up here, I see 4 and 9 11. So I'm going to put my 4 here for now and focus on just the 9 11ths minus the 8 fifths. So having done the problem and having the same denominator, I know that my common denominator is going to be 55. So I'm going to go ahead and write that right down here. And write that right down here. And I know that 11 times 5 is 55. So whatever I do to the denominator, I have to do to the numerator. So 9 times 5 would give me 45. And then I get over here 5 times 11. And whatever I do to the denominator, I need to do to the numerator. And 11 times 8 is 88. Okay. I've got much smaller numbers now when we look at it this way, right? So I've got 45 minus 88. Okay? The other way to think of it is if I change it to addition, I add the opposite. So I'm going to subtract these two numbers. So 88 minus 45. I get 8 minus 5 is 3. 8 minus 4 is 4. And I look here and I say, all right, which one is further from 0? 45 or negative 88? Well, I know that negative 88 is going to be further from 0, so my answer is going to be a negative 43 over 55. Now, so the only disadvantage with this is sometimes we forget about this guy up top that we separated, the 4. But we have to go back and finish the problem. And if I rewrite this, I know that I've got 4 minus 43 over 55. Now, this is where the borrowing comes in. So the first step in doing this is I need to rewrite this number here, the 4, as a mixed number. So the way I do that is I'm going to borrow 1 from the 4. So when I do that, I get 3. And then convert the remaining part into whatever I'm looking for to get my denominator. And in this case, the remaining 1 that we borrowed is going to transform into 55 over 55. And here's how we can check to see. So 55 over 55 is equal to 1. And 1 plus 3 equals 4. So now that I've converted my whole number into a mixed number with the same denominator, I can just go ahead and now subtract. So I bring this down here. I have a common denominator. 55 minus 43 is 12 over 55, and then I know that my whole number is 3. So my final answer, doing it this way, is 3 and 12/55. And if you look now, it matches up what we did when we converted it to an improper fraction and solved that way. However, if you think about the steps and the amount of work required if we break apart our whole number from our fraction and then go back and combine them together, that really this way is probably easier and will save some time. Well, it will require you to get used to doing it this way, but I think you're going to end up dealing with smaller numbers and you don't end up with those large numbers that we had to deal with. I think if we looked here, we'd say this is much easier to work with than the numbers we had before. So let's practice again using splitting it apart. So if we look at this one right here, so I've got 3 3/4. Okay, so if I take that and I'm going to take my 3 and I'm actually just going to circle this for now. And I'm going to look at 3/4 and 7/6. So my common denominator here. So if I skip count by 4, I get 4, 8, 12, 16, and 20. And I skip count by 6. I get 6 and 12. And if you notice right now, I don't have to go any further because this is going to be my common denominator. So now I can go back up and rewrite this with my common denominator. And I think about 4 times what is 12? Well, 4 times 3 will give me 12. So whatever I do to the denominator, I need to do to the numerator. So 3 times 3 gives me 9. 6 times 2 is 12. So whatever I do to the denominator, again, I'm going to do to the numerator. So 7 times 2 is 14. And now I can just subtract. And in this case, I'm going to turn it to addition and adding the opposite. So 9 plus negative 14 is going to give me negative 5 twelfths. And I know this because when I subtract, so 14 minus 9 is 5, but if I think about which number between 9 and negative 14 is further from 0, this number here is further from 0, so my fraction over here is also going to be negative. Now we reintroduce our whole number to the picture and rewrite. So 3 minus 5 twelfths. And again, we think about the process we used above, okay? So the first thing I need to do is I need to borrow 1 from here. And when I do that, it's going to become 2. I'm going to write my remaining fraction using whatever I have as the denominator. So in this case, it's going to be 12. So I'm going to rewrite it as 12 over 12. And again, I can check. So 12 over 12 is 1, and 1 plus 2 is 3. So now all I need to do is rewrite my other fraction, which was 5 twelfths. And now I have common denominators, and I'm just going to subtract my numerators. So my 2 is going to come along for the ride, right over here. And I've got 12 minus 5, which is going to give me 7, and the denominator does not change. So 2 and 7 twelfths. So again, you think about once you get comfortable with separating your whole number from your fraction, how much really it becomes so much easier to either add or subtract. So this works with either addition or subtraction. So we can always pull apart our whole number from our fraction and then reintroduce it once we figure out what our fraction is with the common denominator. So there is a couple examples right there. Remember the first way we did it, we turned it to an improper fraction and subtracted, and then you saw a couple of examples of me pulling apart the whole number from the fraction and subtracting. And again, once we get there, it becomes a little bit easier to deal with. Hopefully you found this helpful, and we will continue working with these fractions and working on getting better.